had to do it. They might have been captured alive. It was the only thing to do.
Steven Spielberg made Schindler's List. He made Saving Private Ryan. The man literally changed the way war looks on screen. So when he sits down and says, "These are the only war movies worth your time," you don't scroll past that. One of these pics is in black and white and almost 100 years old. One of them was directed by a guy who never actually liked war movies. And one of them, Spielberg has admitted, made him physically uncomfortable to watch. These 8 films didn't just impress him, they changed him. Hi, my name is Jeffrey, and this is Old School Movies. Number 8, Das Boot, 1981. So here's a fun fact. Spielberg said that before he made Saving Private Ryan, he went back and studied a handful of films to figure out how to shoot combat in a way that felt real and not glamorous. Das Boot was on that list. And honestly, once you've seen it, that makes complete sense. This is a German film, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, and the whole thing takes place almost entirely inside a German U-boat during World War II. That's it. That's the set. A metal tube underwater, with about 50 men crammed inside it like sardines who've all stopped getting along. What Petersen pulls off here is genuinely insane. He makes you feel the claustrophobia so completely that you start squirming in your own seat. The walls sweat. The men smell. You can practically hear the pressure of the ocean pushing in from every direction. And the tension he builds without a single major action scene for the first hour is something most directors spend their entire careers trying to figure out. Spielberg specifically talked about how this film handled the enemy perspective. These are German soldiers, the people American audiences were raised to see as the villains. And yet, you're completely on their side by the end of the first act. That's not an accident. That's craft. Petersen wasn't making a movie about who was right or wrong. He was making a movie about men trying to survive something that was going to kill most of them, regardless. The theatrical cut is great, but if you can find the director's cut, which runs about 3.5 hours, that's the one you want. It's slow in places, intentionally so, because that's what being trapped in a submarine actually is. Long, suffocating stretches of nothing followed by absolute terror. Das Boot gets that balance exactly right, and Spielberg never forgot it. Number 7, Patton, 1970. Here's what's funny about Patton. It was written by Francis Ford Coppola. Yes, the same Coppola who would go on to make Apocalypse Now, which is also on this list. The man had opinions about war, and those opinions are all over this script. George C. Scott plays General George S. Patton, and he plays him like a man who was born about 500 years too late. Patton genuinely believed he was a reincarnated warrior. He believed he had fought in ancient battles in previous lives. Scott plays this completely straight, and the result is one of the most mesmerizing performances in American film history. Spielberg has said that what he loves about Patton is that it refuses to make its subject simple. Patton is brilliant. He's also unbearable. He slaps a soldier suffering from shell shock because he thinks the man is a coward. He almost gets fired. He gives speeches that make you want to stand up and cheer, and then does something 20 minutes later that makes you want to throw something at the screen. That tension, that refusal to let the audience get comfortable with this guy, is what makes the film extraordinary. Franklin J. Schaffner directed this, and he does something really clever with the camera. He keeps his distance. He doesn't get close to Patton the way most directors would. You're always watching him from slightly too far away, like you're a subordinate who hasn't been given permission to approach. It's a subtle choice, and it pays off enormously. George C. Scott won the Academy Award for this role. Then he refused to accept it. He called the Oscars a meat parade and said he wanted nothing to do with it. Which honestly, knowing what you now know about the character he played, feels entirely appropriate. Number 6, The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957, David Lean. That's all you really need to say. David Lean directed Lawrence of Arabia, which is also on this list, and he directed The Bridge on the River Kwai, which means he essentially appears twice in Spielberg's top 8. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. This one stars Alec Guinness as a British colonel who gets taken prisoner by the Japanese during World War II and ordered to build a railway bridge through the jungle. And here's where it gets interesting. He agrees, not because he surrenders, but because he decides that Building the best possible bridge is a matter of British military pride. All his men are going to show these Japanese captors exactly what British engineering and British discipline look like. The thing is, the bridge he's so proud of is going to be used by the enemy. He's essentially helping the Japanese war effort, and he knows this. He just doesn't care, because in his mind, the bridge has become about something else entirely: honor, legacy, stubbornness dressed up as principle. Spielberg has talked about how this film got under his skin because it's not really a war movie at all. It's a movie about ego, about what happens when a man's sense of identity becomes more important than the actual stakes around him. Guinness won the Oscar for this, and he absolutely earned it. The scene at the end, where he finally realizes what he's done, is one of the great moments in cinema. William Holden is also in this. And he's fantastic. Though he and Guinness apparently did not get along during filming, which, come to think of it, probably helped.
The bridge on the river.
Number 5. Apocalypse Now, 1979. The production of this movie was its own war. Marlon Brando showed up overweight and hadn't read the source material. Martin Sheen had a heart attack on set. A typhoon destroyed the sets. Francis Ford Coppola threatened to kill himself at one point. The whole thing took over a year to film in the Philippine jungle, and by the end nobody was entirely sure what they were making anymore. And somehow, impossibly, it's a masterpiece. Based loosely on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, the film follows Captain Willard, played by Martin Sheen, who is sent upriver into Cambodia to find and eliminate Colonel Kurtz, a decorated special forces officer who has gone completely insane and set himself up as a god among a local tribe. Spielberg has said that what he finds remarkable about Apocalypse Now is how Coppola uses the physical journey as a psychological one. Every mile upriver, things get stranger, darker, more unhinged. Robert Duvall shows up for about 20 minutes and steals the entire film as a cavalry commander who loves surfing and napalm in roughly equal measure. The helicopter attack sequence set to Ride of the Valkyries is one of the most technically and emotionally overwhelming scenes ever put on screen. Brando at the end is a lot. Some people love it. Some people think it tips into pretension. Spielberg has acknowledged the film isn't perfect, but he said perfection isn't the point. The point is that Coppola went somewhere most directors are too careful to go. And whatever you think of the destination, you have to respect the journey. Number 4. All Quiet on the Western Front, in 1930. This one is almost 100 years old. Let that sit for a second. 1930. The Great Depression had just started. Sound in movies was barely 5 years old. And Lewis Milestone went out and made what is still arguably the most devastating anti-war film ever produced. Based on Erich Maria Remarque's novel, the film follows a group of young German students who enlist in World War I, after being inspired by a patriotic speech from their school teacher. What follows is the complete and systematic destruction of every romantic idea they had about war, one by one, slowly and without mercy. Spielberg has brought this film up repeatedly over the years. He said it was one of the first films that made him understand what cinema could actually do to an audience. Not entertain them, not comfort them. Genuinely disturb them in a way that changes how they see the world. The final scene of this film is famous. It is quiet and small and absolutely shattering. I'm not going to describe it. If you haven't seen it, you need to experience it without warning. That's the only way it works. The film won Best Picture at the Academy Awards and was immediately banned in Germany, where the Nazi Party organized riots at screenings. Goebbels himself called it a Jewish attack on German honor, which tells you everything you need to know about how effectively it was doing its job.
Never before, and perhaps...
Number 3. Full Metal Jacket, 1987. Stanley Kubrick directed this, which means two things. 1, it is technically flawless. 2, it is cold enough to give you frostbite. The film splits into two very distinct halves. The first half takes place entirely at Marine Corps boot camp and is dominated by R. Lee Ermey as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, a drill instructor who delivers a masterclass in psychological destruction. Ermey was an actual Marine drill instructor before he became an actor. Kubrick basically told him to improvise and then stood back. What ended up on screen is one of the most intense extended performances in American film history. The second half shifts to Vietnam and gets quieter, stranger, and in some ways more disturbing. The action sequences are brutal, but they're not exciting. Kubrick shoots them with this weird detachment that makes everything feel wrong in a way you can't quite name. Spielberg has said that Full Metal Jacket is the war film that scared him the most to think about as a director. Not because of the violence, but because of the tone. Kubrick makes you feel nothing, and then makes you feel terrible about feeling nothing. That's an incredibly difficult thing to pull off, and Kubrick does it almost effortlessly, which somehow makes it worse. The film was shot entirely in England. Kubrick hadn't left England in years at that point. He had Vietnamese jungle recreated in an abandoned gasworks in East London. Nobody asked him why. Nobody ever really asked Kubrick why.
Full Metal Jacket.
Number 2, Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. This is the one Spielberg studied frame by frame. Rimai said it more than once in interviews. When he was a young filmmaker trying to figure out how to use a widescreen, how to make scale feel personal, how to shoot a landscape so that it becomes a character, he went back to Lawrence of Arabia again and again. David Lean spent 2 years filming this in Jordan, Morocco, and Spain. Peter O'Toole plays T.E. Lawrence, the British officer who united Arab tribes against the Ottoman Empire during World War I. O'Toole had never made a major film before this. After this, he was one of the most famous actors on the planet. What Lean does with the desert is extraordinary. He doesn't make it look beautiful exactly, though it is. He makes it look alive, like it has intentions, like it is waiting for something. The famous cut from a match being blown out to the sun, rising over the horizon, is one of the most imitated shots in cinema history. And it still hasn't been beaten. But what keeps it from being just a spectacle is O'Toole's performance, which is layered and contradictory and deeply uncomfortable. Lawrence is brilliant and charismatic and also cruel and self-destructive, and more than a little unhinged. He loves the Arabs he fights alongside and also uses them. He hates violence and also seeks it out. He's a mess, and O'Toole never tries to resolve that or make it easier to watch. Spielberg has said that Lawrence of Arabia taught him that you can make a film about history and also make it about a human being at the same time without one canceling out the other. He's right, and almost nobody else has managed it at that scale since.
Lawrence and Arabia.
Yeah, number 1, Paths of Glory, 1957. Stanley Kubrick again. The man shows up twice on this list, same as David Lean, and for the same reason. Because when you're this good, you're impossible to ignore. Paths of Glory is set in World War I. Kirk Douglas plays a French colonel ordered to send his men on a suicidal assault against a German position that everyone, including the generals giving the order, knows is impossible to take. The assault fails. Men die. And then, in the film's most enraging and devastating turn, 3 soldiers are selected essentially at random and court-martialed for cowardice. Douglas defends them. The outcome is never really in doubt. Spielberg has called this the greatest anti-war film ever made. Not the most spectacular, not the most ambitious, the greatest. And the reason he gives is specific. He says Kubrick never lets the audience escape into spectacle. There are no heroic charges, no redemptive deaths, no moment where the nobility of sacrifice makes the horror bearable. It just shows you what the machinery of war does to human beings when the people running that machinery stop caring about the humans inside it. The film was banned in France for nearly 20 years. The French military government considered it an insult to the army, which, again, is probably the most accurate possible review a war film can receive. Kirk Douglas has said, this was the film he was proudest of in his entire career. A career that included Spartacus, by the way. That's how good Paths of Glory is. Kubrick made this film when he was 28 years old. 28. I'm just going to leave that there and let it bother you for the rest of the day. So that's the list. 8 films, 2 from David Lean, 2 from Stanley Kubrick, and every single one of them chosen by the man who made Saving Private Ryan, which tells you something about the standard he was measuring against. If you haven't seen all 8 of these, you've got some homework. You can't really go wrong. If you enjoyed this one, hit subscribe, because we do this every week. And if you've got a film you think should have made this list, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. I'm Jeffrey. This is Old School Movies. See you next week.
For not being entirely honest with you. I apologize for not revealing my true feelings.